Well, hello everyone. I hope that you can hear me. I am going live here today on Instagram, something I don't often do, and because I have the hi Marty, I'm just sort of saying hi to you because once I go down I have to focus on the canvas. And hi everyone. So anyhow, today I'm going to be painting the sunflower, and you can kind of see my setup here, and this is what I'll be doing, the sunflower, and if I get time I'll add some of those pretty purple flowers. So I'm going to just make sure everything looks good. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining the live stream. Going live is kind of fun for me because when I'm painting, just doing a video on my own, it's just less interactive. So anyhow, I'm going to start with a little wash. I've got out some of my paints and you can see that I label them. You know, Indian yellow, cad yellow, yellow ochre. You can kind of read what colors I've got. And the transparent brown and red oxide are really, really nice colors. I'm going to start off with a little wash of the brown oxide and ultramarine. I just want to get something on here. My method of painting is, wet on wet, so I usually just, layer up the paint, starting with a thin layer just to kind of gray tone my canvas. And then I move up to thicker paint. And it's a lot of fun painting this way. You never know what's going to happen, So I'm glad that you could join the live. And I do have a Patreon channel where I offer full-length classes and on flowers, birds, animals. So if you're watching this and you're enjoying the lesson and you were wondering about if I teach other lessons, I do. So now I'm going to get some of this Indian yellow. And first of all, what you can do is when you're starting out, I've painted lots of sunflowers, so I can just kind of wing it. But if you want to use what you call the wipeout technique, you can go ahead and kind of mark off where you want that sunflower to be using, this is oil paint that I'm using. And so I'm using this Viva paper towel. And you can kind of lift off the paint where it's going to go so that you can kind of get that instant, like, oh, wow, that's kind of where that's going to go. And if I'm going to put some of the purple stock, I can just lift off some of that purple. There's some of those daisies in there and little bits of the sunflower coming through. So you might go, oh, well, I want the sunflower to be a little bigger and take up more of this 8x8. This is a Centurion linen panel, and I like getting those from Jerry's Artorama. But at this point, you can even get an idea of what the lighter and darker values and how they're going to fill up your canvas and everything. So I like this is the wipeout technique, and I really quite like that. Just going to take a look and make sure everything's going well here. All right. Okay, well, thanks again to those of you who are watching. I really enjoy the privilege of being able to teach art, and I love my students. They're really good, and they work really hard, and so it's kind of a nice thing to be able to do. And so when I start with a sunflower, a lot of the time I'll just sort of wing it because I know where that center is. So I've got this Indian yellow paint that's very transparent, so I can just get, and it will give you that kind of glowy look that sunflowers get. So if you kind of put that in there right away, you know, you'll have that underpaint there that will work even when you add more opaque Cad Yellow Lights with white and whatever. It's a nice color to start with. And then I want to get something in there that's darker, so this transparent red oxide that I'm using is a really good color because it also blends really nicely with yellow. It doesn't make a muddy color, so never go and put, you know, blue or black into the center to darken it right away. That you can do later if you really wanted to. Get the, you know, the darkest dark area in your sunflower. And I'm just sort of blending some of that in. And this is very thin paint at this point, so I'm going to put some of that in here, just kind of get that in there. And so now that you've got that down there, you can get your Viva towel and you can even lift off some of the parts of your sunflower that you want to really show a highlight color on. So I can lift off some of that Indian yellow that I put on earlier, and it will create a really beautiful yellow glow. And even down here. So just sort of, and if you're not lifting off enough, I haven't added any terp. This is just a dry paper towel, but say it wasn't really lifting anything off, I could go and add some terp, but I'm not, because the Indian yellow is a transparent color, which means basically you can see through it. And it has enough of that mixture in it that's kind of clear, so I can just wipe it off. Whereas you put a color like orange down there, you would need to add terp to lift it off. So it's nice and transparent and easy to work with in the early stages of your painting. Now, when I do a sunflower, I can't resist this bouquet I got from Costco, and I love the mixture of purple and the yellow flowers. I guess I'm just a simple person. It just always makes me happy, that combo, pink and purple, or pink and that bright yellow flower. So just get some of that cobalt blue, and I could put out purple that would work, you know, like a permanent what is that, magenta or something, you know, and put it straight from the tube. But I want to show you how to mix your own purple. So you need a red like quinacridone red, or you need like a permanent rose. You can't make this color using alizarin. So if you think, well, I'll just use alizarin will make it muddy and gray. You'll never get that vibrant purple. So you see, this is sort of a real, almost like a dioxazine violet kind of purple. So if you want it to look more of that pinky purple, just add a little more of your quinacridone red, then you'll get that more, you know, pinky sort of color. So I'm just adding some random marks just to kind of fill in that space where those flowers, and there's some little pink flowers up here. I'm just gonna kind of put in some of these marks as if there's another stalk kind of going around there, just for the sake of keeping it simple. And then we've got some daisies in here. I'm going to get some of this sap green, and I'm going to just block in some green into this area. You can leave a little, you can leave some spaces where you want to put some daisies, but you don't really need to. You can just block in your sap green, and it's picking up some of that magenta on my brush, the magenta that I made with that cobalt blue and quinacridone red. And I'll get some more sap and put some, just tuck in a little bit of that green up in here. And there's some green leaves and whatnot up in here, so I'm just gonna make some leafy shapes. They don't have to be perfect. In fact, you can shape them later to however you want them to look using the background color, which will make it look way more kind of impressionistic and fun versus just sitting and drawing like a perfect leaf, you know? And then you have all these like really super tight leaves. So I'm just gonna loosen those up and we'll just have fun with that. I'm just gonna dab some more of that sap around here. Put in some more green. I like having bouquets with a lot of, you know, eucalyptus leaves and different leaves that you can kind of throw in there to fill the space. So now I'm going to use the Wipeout technique. I can kind of lift off a few of those little white flowers if I wanted to, and just kind of give the idea of where they're gonna go. And same with here, I can really pick out some, I'll get a clean paper towel, and you can really pick up some of that pink if you wipe off some of the paint you put down with the cobalt and quin red. You'll get back down to that canvas and it really starts to glow. So I'll just lift off some of those paints like that, and now you can see it creates a real feeling of those flowers, almost like you almost could leave them like that and not do too much to them because they feel, you know, more, almost more authentic, you know, than if you try to draw each single flower. So another thing you can do is use a brush and just with some terp, you can lift off some of the underpaint in, you know, daisy shapes like that. So I'm just showing you a few different techniques. I know it's a lot to take in all at once, but if you're watching and you haven't taken any of my classes, you can join through Patreon and take them at your own speed. You don't have to you don't have to go warp speed like when I'm painting and you're trying to follow along. It's a little bit fast, but that's just because I've done it a lot and it's kind of my method. Okay, so now we've got sort of something going on, at least on this little panel. And now we can start having some fun. So I want to go back to my sunflower, and now I can start to really look at the values. If you really look at the value of the sunflower and squint, you'll see the petals are quite dark in here compared to the tips. So you really gotta use your squinting down, looking at what, you know, what's really going on, or you won't get that shape. So I kind of like to simplify things, so I'm just going to get some of this Cad Yellow Light, and I'm going to add some of this transparent red oxide. I've got my red and brown mixed up today. I put the brown where it says red and brown, and this is red. So they're just switched up. So some of you are probably going, what is she doing? So this is red oxide and Cad Yellow Light, and I'll use a little bit of terp to get things going a little quicker. So now I can sort of, I want to bring in some of that darkness so that I can show off the light tips. So I'll just go in and add some of that. And some artists, you know, just put it in like this at first and then, you know, work the strokes more. It kind of just depends on, you know, the mood I'm in. I'll put in some of that dark in here so that we can show off all those nice bright highlights there. And sort of work in that darker. I want to get even a little darker in the center, so add some more of that red oxide. You could even add a little orange to really warm it up, deepen it, and add some quin red just to get a real warm shadow. The warmer and the deeper it goes, the more this sunflower is going to have that feeling of a kind of 3-dimension. And I'm not going to paint the sunflower exactly, you know, what you see. I'm using it just as a reference. I'm not going to do each petal. And so now that you've got that going, I'm just going to lift off a little bit of that paint there at the very tip so that it makes it easier to put my nice bright highlight. So now you can see this needs to go darker. So I'm going to get some transparent brown oxide and get that in there darker. So again, the value darker and warm, and you'll start to see the sunflower take shape more 3-dimensionally. So it's not looking so flat anymore. And even just to keep it simple, you know, you can see how it goes from a dark to a mid value to the light, bright yellow value. So it's just, you know, keeping those values going and the colors warm and clean. You'll get there. When I first painted sunflowers, I would just put yellow down, and I would go through tubes of thick paint, putting down more and more yellow because I couldn't get the shape I wanted, but it was just because I didn't really understand the value that I had to get, that I had to build up to that. So I'd have all these bright yellow strokes going, and like I say, I was going through a lot of paint, and it was very frustrating. I had trouble getting someone to show me how to paint a sunflower. So for now, I'm just kind of getting some more of that nice, bright, you know, Cad Yellow. This is a Cad Yellow Light. Kind of looks like a Cad Yellow Medium. The brand that this brand is very dark. It says Cad Yellow Light Pure by Utrecht, but it's, to me, looks more like a Cad Yellow Medium. So I also have this Cad Yellow Light from Gamblin, and this is more, to me, what a Cad Yellow Light should look like, more closer to like a lemon yellow, you know, something that looks brighter, but it all depends on who you ask. So you just kind of learn as you go what brands that you like and what color in certain brands you like. Certain Indian yellows are a lot oranger than the Winsor Newton is a nice one. That's what I use for the Indian yellow. So I'm just going to put in, this is the for shortened side, so I'll just put in a few of the kind of like the edges of you're seeing kind of just the tips of the sunflower there. So I'm just kind of putting in some of those strokes. You can work on getting them the way you want them better later. So you just kind of work that around, put in a few more of those, kind of those little edges. And get in that center a bit now, a little bit darker and a little bigger. That's just some transparent brown oxide. And you can kind of shape it like that. And then once you start getting, you've got like sort of the next level of information here, then you can start adding some more. You can go back and now re-add some thicker paint in the shadow colors. So I'll get some of this red oxide and mix it in with the Cad Yellow Light and just sort of work in a bit more of the shapes at the bottom there, but you don't want to make them light or it will flatten out again. So if you were to take like a bright yellow like this and put it down in the shadow area, well, now it matches the highlight area, so then you've got a problem because it starts to flatten. And it's really a common thing. The more you work on something, the more you start to kind of reverse all your hard work that you did in the beginning. So go back and just sort of darken that. And you want to keep that edge, you know, softened. You don't want it to look too tight because then your eye will go in there. So now I'll get some more paint and kind of shape a few of these a bit. And I like to shape them both ways. So I'll shape them with paint like this, and the other way I like to do it is using the background color. So I will go in and shape using like some of the sap green. I'm going to get that in there, a little bit of brown oxide to darken it, and you can go in and really shape some of those petals, and it just looks way more painterly if you do a few like this where you're using your background to work in some of that green like that. So I just kind of darken it with some of that brown oxide just to really get it deep. And that also, you can see, is sharpening the sunflower, but it's also making it look more three-dimensional because it's really showing how just how bright the light highlighted petals are. And then you can always go back and soften some of them off. Like, they don't all have to be, you know, super sharp like that, but we'll get to that. And then I might go to a little smaller brush. Sometimes I forget what I'm using. Go back to this number 6, this bristling flat brush. And I'll add some of this Cad Yellow Light. This is just a cheap one, the Gamblin 1980, so it's a little stiffer. I bought a new one because I found it was just a little too stiff. But you can use your brush and really scoop up some of that bright yellow highlight and just add a few real bright highlights, maybe to these tips here, to really show that they're catching the light. And if you have, I'm doing this with quite a lot of paint, so it's a little bit harder to get the right kind of mark. But sometimes what I'll do is, if I really want to get it on there, I'll just get my palette knife and make a nice brush stroke using my palette knife. And then you can always shape your, you can always go back and then kind of, once you've got all that thick paint on there, you can always go back and kind of shape. So you can see it just sort of blends it in a little bit. So, you know, I'm okay, so you can mix some Cad Yellow medium with that Cad Yellow Light to get another bright yellow, and just sort of, you know, kind of adjust some of those tips like that. And I'll throw in a few little marks in there just to loosen it up a little. And then in the center of the sunflower, we can do some of the same, add some more color to it. So I like to add, sometimes I'll get some of this purple and add a little more blue to it, and just get a little, put a little mark of that in the middle. Just kind of gives it a little bit of that, you know, the light that reflects in between the little seeds. And I'll get some of this brown oxide and I'll dab around the edges some of the, you know, where you can sort of see those little seeds kind of pop up. And kind of work that in. And then I'll just take a little bit of this lighter yellow and kind of go over some of those leaves up here and add a little bit of that lighter green here and there. And I'm going to switch to a small brush and use some of that brown oxide and just kind of, and maybe a little of that ultramarine blue, and you really want to get the shadow in the side that, you know, we're kind of got the light kind of coming up. You really want to get that dark shadow in there to really show just how dark and how deep down that sunflower goes. So just sort of, and you can use it to shape some of those. And you can kind of go around, and then there's a few little areas where those seeds kind of come up a little more. So you're kind of, you know, you're building up to what you want to see in your sunflower. You kind of add a little, take away, but you kind of keep going. And this is not the greatest sunflower, because I'm not used to, for one, I haven't done a live on Instagram in ages, but I feel like it's a great way to connect with people who follow me, and it makes your art more than just a picture. If people kind of, you know, can get your mindset on it a bit, it's more interesting. I'm just putting a few marks here and there to kind of loosen it up a little. And you might get some of that darker green and just kind of pop some down here where it's really should be a little darker. So there's all kinds of ways to get that, you know, dimension in your paintings. And this kind of comes down a little more. And of course, the more you warm up when you're painting, the more you sort of see. So you're like, oh, I didn't really notice that earlier. And you get your art brain working. You start to see things a little better. Just kind of working that in there a little more. Some of those darker marks. So it's starting to look less stagnant. It was looking pretty. For a while there, it was looking a little bit like a sad sunflower. Okay, so then there's some fun things you can do depending on your mood. Sometimes I will get a little orange and kind of enhance some of those little glowy things that you see when you see all those petals in the reference photo. You can see there's some little kind of oranges here and there, so you can play around with that. You can always, if you don't like it, you can always scrape it off or go get some other colors like yellow or something and just kind of paint over it or whatever you want. But it's fun to kind of play around with adding some interesting little doodads to your painting. So the sunflower, I would, when I'm painting a bouquet, I would leave it and then I would go back to it. So I would go and paint other things in the bouquet, because when you change other things, then you start to see other things that you can do to your sunflower. So, you know, if I'm looking at my reference, I might want to make this petal, for example, kind of comes up a little higher, but you don't start to really see things until you've been painting for a while. So I'm kind of pushing that up a little there, and so I would go and add these nice purple flowers. So I'll show you how I would, you know, work on a few of these purple flowers before I go. So I'll get some of this quinacridone red and a little cobalt and blue and a little bit of white, and you can get some of that pinky purpley color. And you don't want to lose these dark elements because that's what really shows it off, but you could put a few of those little pinks to make, you know, some of those little stalk kind of buds that you see here and there. It just kind of looks pretty. So I'm just gonna put a few of those in here and there. And you can add a little bit of some of that pink in here. I'm kind of keeping the looseness of those flowers. I don't really want to do too much to them. So, and I really love the lime green, so I'm going to go and get some of that sap and I'll mix it in with that. I had some of that Cad Yellow Light, the Gamblin, or you can use whatever, this color, the Cad Yellow Light, and a little bit of white to bring it up, and you'll get that kind of limey color. So sap and Cad Yellow Light will make that lime color, and I want to put in a few of those, just a few of those marks. You don't even like think, oh, I have to have it, you know, connecting to something. Just throw in a few of those to make it look, give you that feeling of those pretty stock, you know, branches, you know, without getting too overworked. Just the color combo of the purple and, you know, the lime green, the yellow, it's such a satisfying thing to do. And then you can use some of the darker green if you want to put some of those highlights in there. So I'm not really getting into the detail too much, just putting a few of those marks in there. It just creates a nice kind of flow with the rest of the painting. Then I'm going to get some of that white and I'm just going to quickly kind of add a few more petals. You kind of have the wipe away petals, but you can add a little bit, and then if you get some white and add a tiny dab of orange to it, you'll get sort of more of a bright white to go and put down just for some of the highlights there. And those flowers, I really don't want them to look like much, just kind of more, they're just sort of the stage for your sunflower. You can get a few lighter highlights here and there. But again, I'm not getting fussy about the details. I'm just sort of adding a few lighter marks here and there, just because to add some, you know, some of that texture. And use my little brush and kind of cut in some of that shape like that. And you can use your brush to soften some of these edges. Just take a dry brush and go over the edge a little, so you're not having all of the sunflowers so sharp. So I'll just kind of take my brush and soften using a dry brush and putting it kind of on the edge of the green and the yellow. Just sort of like that, you know, soften that off. And I don't know if you're still watching, but for the background, I would get a little white and just using this big brush, I'll get some cobalt blue or something. This makes a nice bluey purple color. I'll just show you quickly how I would shape the leaves. So you could go in and just cut out the leaf. Now you have what looks really professional, I'll call it, is you've got the brush strokes of the leaf going that way, and then you've cut out the leaf and it cuts and cleans up the edge. It just makes it look really interesting, and you'll see it. A lot of painters do that. The ones that really, know what they're doing. So I just learned, you look at what you like and kind of try to figure out how would that brush stroke have started, how do they get the brush strokes going that way, but then the background comes along and kind of cuts off that edge a bit. It's like a little bit of a chess game, you're thinking a couple steps ahead of what you want to see in your painting. And so kind of painting at the speed of light here. But that's sort of a few things we can take away is, don't paint just yellow, bright yellow sunflowers. Start with that wash of, you can use the Indian yellow or whatever. Some people use transparent orange. You can use that red oxide for the center, and then start building, that dark to light yellow. Using your red oxide, you can really kind of blend that all the way up in your Cad Yellow, with your Cad Yellow Light. And then for the stock, we use the cobalt blue and the quinacridone red, and just sort of wiped away to get a lot of those glowy pinks that are in there. So I did a little more than just the sunflower, but I couldn't resist because I really loved that purple with it. So yeah, so I hope that you enjoy this little tutorial, and I'll probably do more of them once I get used to the setup and everything. It just kind of took me a while to get back to it, but it's a lot of fun. And I just thanks for everyone who watched, for joining me, and I'll try to find a way of getting the video up to YouTube so you can rewatch it, because I'm not too sure, how to how to get it from viewable on Instagram yet. So anyways, thank you everyone for watching, and I will definitely do more of these, so hopefully it'll become a regular routine. Thank you, Sharon. I saw Sharon. And have a great day and happy painting.